G'day, I'm Ash, and I'm going to be borrowing some footage from the Warthunder channel until I run out of stuff to steal from them. Today we're going to be talking about the recent update and what I personally think about the changes and their consequences on the game as a whole. The recent changes involve, in the last major update, Sky Guardians, it involves the 16 vs 16 for realistic air battles and several other interesting changes. I don't know. It's quite interesting. I only tend to get a couple of kills before either getting yeeted or you know, just before getting absolutely dominated by someone who actually knows what they're doing. So 16 versus 16 is an interesting change and dynamic that I'd like to talk about today, but also I'd like to just talk about generally how the update feels. From the outset, the update feels incredibly sort of just, I don't know, it just feels just a normal, regular update. There isn't anything that is super broken. There are a lot of bugs in it. There are a lot of flight model and damage model changes, which are quite interesting. But again, as an overview, the update itself brought, you know, a nice, decent amount of content and brought some interesting changes and quality of life changes to the game that have been needed for years. For example, the Lancasters getting their big 12,000 pound bombs and several other, like, minor details. For example, the new supersonic cone effect is quite nice, and obviously the contrails at certain altitudes is also very interesting depending on the map's weather and the way that it interacts with the game, and that is based purely on whether it is a cold map or a hot map. Depends on location, the altitude you spawn at, especially the altitude you're at, and various other weather factors, which is what happens in the real world. It makes spotting enemies far more easier, and you can also see missiles that have been launched properly now as well. Plus there's little wing vertices. When you go into a turn, you'll notice the aerofoils sometimes have curls around them and several other aerodynamic features. It's quite interesting to see. And with that, the other major change, obviously, is, I don't know if anyone else is feeling like this, but the chances for enduring confrontation maps, it does feel like it's slightly higher than what regular maps are. Since they've increased the player count, maybe they're hoping that regular top-tier enduring confrontation maps will play out better, but for the most part, I think for enduring confrontation maps, we'll need 32 versus 32. I'm just, you know, that's a bit of an extremity, but I really feel like those larger maps are almost too large for the game, which is nice to see them thinking about, you know, players who wanted bigger maps, but, you know, there's no sort of balance. You can have really small maps and have really quick matches, or you can have really large maps and have basically fuck all to no content / gaming or sort of dogfighting or fighting in a situation. And that be that. Outside of that, the smaller changes are quite nice. It's been an interesting update. There hasn't been a major vehicle that has broken Matchmaker or broken sort of the game early on. It hasn't broken anything. Everyone was expecting the Yak 1-for-1 to be absolutely dominating, and everybody expected the Panthea to also be that dominating factor, but it appears that the controversy over Gaijin's decision to add 2 anti-air vehicles to the Russian tech tree rather than add other anti-air vehicles as well in the same update named Sky Guardians hasn't gone down too well, although it appears that those 2 vehicles are rather limiting in their ability to do things. Although that little Czechoslovakian lizard thing is actually quite effective at killing tanks, as it appears. The new Tornado ADV is actually quite interesting. I've got a video coming on that soon. It's a fantastic little jet that, it's not so little, but you understand what I mean. It's good content. It wasn't something that was completely and utterly just, like for example, the addition of the A10 and, you know, thousands and thousands of premiums in Matchmaker. That still is the case. I have seen screenshots circulating on Reddit where there has been absolutely no premiums on a 16 versus 16, which is quite remarkable. So, I don't know. Time will tell whether or not there will be another major update which will have something broken in it. We're coming up to April Fools, so that does mean that there could be something this year that will be slightly busted, broken, and bonkers, but you know, Gaijin Entertainment's premium strategy for this major update has also changed. I'll probably talk about that in another video, but to summarise that one, essentially, you're basically Camonet plus tech tree vehicle equals a premium, like for example, the Leopard, the Striker, and now the Type 16. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens there. And some of the new major features of the update include coloured X-rays, although that's also proven to be a bit buggy with gunner positions and crew positions being in awkward positions. It's quite entertaining to see. I'm glad there's going to be bug fixes and things addressing that at some point. But again, the nice quality of life changes with a whole heap of bugs. Of course, this is Gaijin Entertainment we're talking about. No patch can be perfect. It never is, but this one seems to be probably the most lackluster in sort of, overall content, and I'm happy for that, because that means that there isn't something that's completely dominant, breaking matchmaker for 3 months before something else happens and something else is added and then it goes around in circles. Granted, there really isn't anything for them to really make money on this major update either, outside of a couple of the new premiums. The new Phantom for America is very interesting. I've had a bit of a play around with that one. I've quite enjoyed flying that. And initially it did seem like there was only going to be 2 aircraft to have ejection seats, and they've since updated that list to a heap of aircraft. So that way, the live update that is out now, you can actually use and have proper ejection seat animations, which is fantastic. Now we just need folding wings to be a proper thing. I don't know why, just like the idea of proper folding wings, and several other different minor changes. But hey, I asked the community regarding what they thought of the live update, and a lot of you responded with the update is okay. 58% of you said the update was okay, 11% of you said the update was bad, and 20% of you said I don't care, I'm playing other games. Now that had 2.9k votes on YouTube, and on Twitter some of you guys responded with some of the interesting things like I don't like the update because it has too many bugs, or there's too many other things, but again, it really was subject to change, so who knows what goes on there. So generally the update is okay, and that is a good thing. And, for an update of War Thunder to be this okay, I'm quite pleased. It's small changes, nice visual effects. The sound designer has to justify his job again, so they've changed a bunch of sound effects. And really that's about it. I can't go anywhere without mentioning the horrible addition to the game, particularly with the APDS changes in form of the horrible experience. Aircraft guns do absolutely nothing as well, although they reverted some of the changes there. The overall patch didn't really add anything of value aside from the Char 2C and maybe some of the stuff for the Lancasters. And personally, I think this may be a redemption year for War Thunder, but that is heavily asterisked, considering that I feel incredibly burnt out as a content creator and as a player, so who knows what comes out of the later updates. And as I have said time and time again, it's better to have modest updates than have updates that completely and utterly change the meta every 3 months, because then you're having to relearn what is top tier and what isn't. And so I'm rather glad that that doesn't necessarily happen, and that instead what we have here is just another update that just adds to the content. Another change that's particularly interesting: when you get killed or when you kill something, it tells you what weapon or what gun or what missile or what rocket that you actually used. So who knows what that potentially pertain to. It reminds me of the old days of War Thunder, back in the day when you used to see such and such has critical this plane, or set a fire to this plane in the chat in the top and the bottom right. So, good old days, and generally speaking, it's an okay update, and I feel like that is a good thing for War Thunder. It's good to have an okay update, because without it, sometimes we'd end up by making these crazy videos about, oh my god, F111 or such and such. So again, we'll have to wait and see what happens for April Fools, and we'll have to wait and see what happens for the rest of the year. I do feel like there wasn't enough content to really justify Sky Guardians. It should have had more SPAA. The changes to high explosive and several other aircraft changes didn't feel right. I feel like they should have quizzed the community about that and did a little more testing and in-dev testing. And they should have obviously asked about the APDS changes as well, because that just completely screwed over any British light tank / heavy tank / British tank in general. So, it's up in the air whether or not this update was good. So let me know what you think in the comments down below, because on one hand they're moving forward and they're making decent strides and making decent content, and on the other hand they're doing and tweaking things that probably shouldn't have been tweaked. Anyway, my name is Ash. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to everyone who supported the channel recently. And if you haven't already, go and see my April Fool's predictions video yesterday, when we talk about what's happening and potentially what could be happening for this year's upcoming April Fools. Other than that, buy my decal. Link in the description if you want 3% off anything in War Thunder. Link down below. And subscribe, because we're only going to be putting out more content this year. At least that's the aim. I've got my mojo back in order, so hopefully we get some decent content this year.